Don't you fall for it. Don't you fall for it. Keep your head up, never let them get you fed up. You just step up, get your rep up, get your cash up, get your check up. The whole system's a setup. It's time we really get up. We've been about this revolution from the time we met up. Take it back, I got my fists up, Malcolm X in '88. But revolution only works for those that will participate. You are great, they are fake. Yo, it's time to demonstrate higher level mental states. Conscious people congregate. Show the love, not the hate. This is basic, no debate. But these people are debating and they hating, they should wait. It was bickering amongst ourselves that got us in this state. Yeah, the truth is inconvenient, but the truth is never late. You can't see what they be doing, how they thinking, how they moving. You can't see what they pursuing, making claims none are proven. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. We can see who is the enemy. Sovereignty's the remedy. You don't need telepathy, it's white supremacy. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Bringing the raw, doing it all. Government officials bringing the law. You never see what you never saw. 303, open the door. Knowledge reigns, that is the game. Ignorance, that is insane. Don't fall for it. The reps and the Dems are the same. This one's shooting us up. That one's locking us up. This one got us stuck. That one's out of luck. You can front if you need to, the cycle never ends. No justice, but in 4 years they hyping us again. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. If you thinking and you earning and you drinking and you burning and you really not concerning with the news and what they learning, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. If you love it, never hate it. You agreeing, don't debate it. HBC, you educated. Your degree is highly rated. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. Don't fall for it. Yo, me, I'm not a fake dude. I'ma keep it real. They see through it all that America needs a heel deal. America ain't really sick. This is what it really is. Gunshots and cages for black and brown little kids. Now they acting like they not the cause of how we live. Do not tell me what you gonna do. I can see what you did. Look at her, look at him, look at them, look at me. Do you see our interests represented in society? No, you don't, and you won't, cause democracy's a joke. Every 4 years, these same people asking us to vote. Nothing changed but the Range Rover switching lanes over. I remain the flamethrower. Knowledge reigns, game over. Don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. Rodney King, George Floyd, man, we all saw it. So don't protest with the fines, but don't move with self-reliance. While the soul is being silenced for the religion of science. Don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. If you thinking and you earning and you drinking and you burning and you really not concerning with the news and what they learning, don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. There's no justice in the courts. We are always taking shorts. They can shoot us like a sport, and it's our trust that they want. Don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't you fall for it. Take it up. Don't you fall for it.
My feet up, my feet up, my feet up.
Trap, I'm doing me. Hey yo, keep back with my feet up. In the trap, I'm doing me.
My feet up,
I'm doing me.
my feet up.
Hey yo, keep back with my feet up. In the trap, I'm doing me. Keep my distance from these suckers like me. Let them ruin me. Drug dealer, pimps and hustlers, they the ones influence me. 13 jumped off the porch, my plug is influence. Hey yo, keep back with my feet up. Keep back with my feet up. Keep back with my feet up. In the trap, I'm doing me. Hey yo, keep back with my feet up. Keep back with my feet up. Drug dealer, pimps and hustlers, they the ones influence me. Bring the work naked like a skinny dipping, no problem. We did for the school of mission. Told out, couple screws missing. Paranoid niggas, super scared. No paper in the real efficient. Niggas stole what a nigga kitchen. Without a diamond, still shine glisten. Sell it around so everybody hit it. Falling strong, trying to for a mission. Man, it's simple addition. Bad luck like a bad kid. One feet up in the trap, I'm doing me. Keep my distance from these suckers, I can't let them ruin me. Drug dealer, pimps and hustlers, they the ones influence me. 13 jumped off the porch with drugs, is influencing. Hey, I'm keep back with my feet up, keep back with my feet up. Keep back with my feet up in the trap, I'm doing me. Hey, I'm keep back with my feet up, keep back with my feet up. Drug dealer, pimps and hustlers, they the ones influence me. Hey, I'm keep back with my feet up in the trap, I'm doing me. Keep my distance from these suckers, I can't let them ruin me. Drug dealer, pimps and hustlers, they the ones influence me. 13 jumped off the porch with drugs, is influencing. Hey, I'm keep back with my feet up, keep back with my feet up. Keep back with my feet up in the trap, I'm doing me. Hey, I'm keep back with my feet up, keep back with my feet up. Drug dealer, pimps and hustlers, they the ones influence me.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank everybody for joining me today for this content that matters. I'm back at you with another hearing here. This one seems to be a very heated one. Seems to be like a very heated one so far, just like the last one. I think it was like bits and pieces that they were feeding off of that was just highlights. Like that dumb woman that didn't even know about Missouri versus Biden. But on live television, that's fucked up. But this one here is a little bit different. This is about the protecting the female athletes. And I believe we did one like this before, but maybe about 2 months ago. I think her last name is Gaines. I seen bits and pieces of this. I didn't see the whole thing, so all this is going to be first time reactions. I learned that from Money Boy. I try to keep it that way. You know what I'm saying? It ain't always good to know everything that you review. Get the good responses. You know what I mean? I'm not even going to waste time. This one actually has some length to it a little bit. I got it sped up a little bit so we can get through it. I got these things lining up, and it's time to start knocking them down. And they coming out daily right now. I know they're going to be coming out hard because it's the Christmas holidays. And they're going to be back on vacation. As normal. But, and forgive the night scene. I still haven't concentrated on getting my other screens back together yet. It's like, them things are a mess. Y'all won't even want to see if you've seen them before. It's like, what the hell happened? That damn tornado. But this is one I do have prepared, so we're just gonna go ahead and roll with it. I like the chat sitting there like that. If I can adjust it to... I'll work on that later. Let's get this one started here.
Wait, 1 second.
Hopefully we don't get a lot of buffer.
We're missing a witness. We're missing a witness.
Later on, I might try my StreamYards up here. I did get that going yesterday on the back end. Taking them a minute to start. Thought I caught it right there when they was talking.
I'm sorry about that. I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. Quite simply, men do not belong in women's sports. Let me say it one more time. Men do not belong in women's sports. The simple fact is that this needs to be said out loud is really kind of a sad reflection of where the other side is on this issue. There should be no debate about this. However, we are here today because the Biden administration is choosing to ignore the truth, and I might add the science. The truth is that by allowing biological males to compete in women's sports is fundamentally unfair. It is also unsafe. Scientific evidence, and I'll say that again, scientific evidence affirms that biological males and females have unchangeable physiological differences attributed to their sex. Some of these differences benefit male athletes. For example, males typically have greater muscle mass, lung capacity, and bone density than females. All of these characteristics give males a competitive advantage over females. This is why women should compete against women and men should not compete against them. That is what Title IX was designed to protect. By allowing biological males to compete in women's sports, we are placing our daughters in danger every time they step onto the field. This hearing is about protecting women, period. That's it. I'm standing up for the rights of women, children, my daughter, your daughter, our granddaughters. I'm frustrated as I continue to hear about female athletes who are injured by biological males competing in women's sports. I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters. Any parent will tell you that their most sacred responsibility is to protect their children. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what this hearing is about. That's why today is about protecting our daughters, our nieces, and our granddaughters. It's time for us to get off the sideline and actually stand up for them. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has shown that it's putting leftist policies before women and girls. In a fraudulent effort to be inclusive, the Biden administration is sacrificing equality instead of defending the hard-fought protections that Title IX secured. I mean, think of how long we fought for Title IX, for equality for women. The Biden administration has proposed 2 rules that will drastically alter Title IX. The Biden administration proposed rule redefines sex to include gender identity and expand Title IX protections to biological males. Protections that were created and implemented for women and girls. If the Biden administration is successful, it will mean that more women will lose out on academic and athletic opportunities that should have been afforded to them under Title IX. Again, the whole reason we put together Title IX. Last year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Title IX's enactment. For the last 50 years, we've seen Title IX's success in securing equality for women across the country. We cannot allow this administration to dismantle the rights and protections that women fought so hard to achieve. We must protect women and girls, and I encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stay centered on this issue throughout the hearing. To our panel, thank you for being here today before the subcommittee. I'm looking forward to having this very important discussion with you. And I now recognize the ranking member, Ms. Lee, for your opening statement. Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's disappointing to me that although the title of this hearing implies a much needed discussion, we're likely going to be forced to listen to transphobic bigotry. Because actually, protecting female athletes in Title IX is important. Participating in sports provides so many benefits to our young people. Those benefits range from improved mental and physical health to enriched life skills, such as teamwork and goal setting. In terms of mental health, studies show that participating in youth sports is associated with lower rates of anxiety and depression, lower amounts of stress, higher self-esteem and confidence, and reduced risk of suicide. So why are my Republican colleagues working so hard to prevent our trans youth from participating? According to the Human Rights Campaign, in just the first 143 days of 2023, elected officials across the nation introduced more than 520 anti-LGBTQIA bills in state legislatures. 23 states ban trans youth from participating in school sports consistent with their gender identity, with some laws focusing on kids as young as kindergarten. How competitive is kindergarten? You all are working.
Okay. Let me get warmed up real quick here, because I think I had this same thing to say on the last time they had this. And how come the black women have so much fight for this but don't have that much fight for their coaching? It just seemed that way to me. I could be wrong, you know. Of course somebody's gonna pull out some bullshit proof, but I don't see this kind of fight. I'm just saying.
So hard at excluding and demonizing a bunch of kids.
Okay,
I think it's important that we raise the voices of transgender athletes, their families, and teammates. I'd like to read a few of their stories written in the first person. The first from Cece Telfer, a professional track athlete, model, and advocate. I was a former D2 national champion in the 400-meter hurdles, and I am now a professional athlete training to make it on the Team USA and represent them in the following Olympics to come. Sports have given me a plethora of things, but mainly sports have given me strength, taught me how to overcome fear and stand up when defeated. Sports have given me collaborative skills that was developed throughout the years of being an athlete and having teammates. Sports taught me how to stay focused and committed, along with the necessary skills that sports has taught me and giving me clarity and freedom. Transgender women and girls, transgender people are not a threat. We don't play sports to cheat. We deserve the rights as any other women because that's what we are. There are rules and regulation that define our ability to compete. The narrative that builds on myself and trans kids in the community is negative and dehumanizing. It feels as though people don't want us to exist. And in order to change the narrative, because we do exist, and we're not going to stop existing, we need to stop these anti-trans bills. They are dehumanizing and kids are dying. Instead, I believe the government should step up and support trans people on all levels to show that we are seen and have rights and are people just like everybody else. From Ember, a transgender female high school softball player. When I was younger, I played co-ed baseball. I loved it. When the teams became single sex, I no longer fit in. I was teased and ostracized, though the most difficult part was not feeling like myself, so I quit. I came out as trans in 7th grade and wanted to play softball, but my state requires trans girls to take hormones for a year before they can play a sport. So I waited for 3 years. During that time, I became self-conscious, uncomfortable with my body, and lost all of my confidence. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I was finally approved to play on a girls' team in the spring of my sophomore year of high school. Playing on a girls' team has been an incredible experience for me. I have made so many friends and improved so much despite starting so late. My teammates treat me just like everyone else on the team. So do my coaches. My team is part of my family. We are all so different and come from different cliques, but when we're together on the field, we are there for each other no matter what. Every kid should be lucky enough to have this experience. And from Debbie Jackson, a parent of a non-binary teen. My child Avery is now 15 years old. Avery doesn't even remember what it was like to be viewed as a boy. We affirmed who they are at a young age and supported a social transition before kindergarten. During that time, Avery was in a co-ed trampoline class at a local gym. The gymnastics classes at the gym were divided by gender, and as we began referring to Avery as our daughter, Avery asked to move into gymnastics. It was one additional step toward being affirmed and accepted authentically. To this day, some of my favorite photos and videos are from the first day of that class when Avery marched so confidently onto the mats with a barely grown out traditional boyish haircut next to a gaggle of other girls with their bouncy ponytails. Avery enthusiastically followed every word of the coach, trying forward rolls and falling off the balance beam with every step, literally every step. Avery was the most gloriously awkward, non-athletic creature I have ever witnessed. I can safely tell you that Avery is still a gloriously awkward, non-athletic creature who will never win in any athletic endeavor. But participating in sports isn't about winning. Playing sports helps with mental health, teaches teamwork, provides camaraderie with others, and teaches discipline and goal setting. It opens doors to friendship, connection, and community with others. That's what my child experienced in that gymnastics class, and other trans kids deserve to experience all of those benefits too. I am so thankful that Avery didn't have to choose between not participating in sports or being forced to participate as a boy. Forcing a transgender child to choose between living an authentic life and playing a game is cruel. Think about how it would feel to have your body openly discussed by others or have the fairness of your existence and basic rights debated in a public forum. That's what you are doing to innocent kids. Please leave our kids alone. They deserve so much better from people in power. I want to thank these people for sharing their stories and reminding us that this is about children and daughters and sons and siblings and friends. These are real people with real experiences who deserve to feel loved and included. I'd ask unanimous consent to enter these letters to the Committee for Transgender Athletes provided by the National Center for Transgender Equality.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Sports are a vital aspect of education that offers important lessons. Athletics allows young people from diverse backgrounds to engage in healthy movement and play, learn how to work as a team, and form meaningful connections. Madam Chair, I ask that while we sit through this hearing and hear the hateful misinformation I'm sure is going to come our way, let us not forget that children are at the core of this issue. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. I will now recognize our witnesses for today. Ms. Riley Gaines is a former collegiate athlete for the University of Kentucky and now serves as an ambassador for the Independent Women's Voice. Welcome. Ms. Sarah Perry is a senior legal fellow in the Edwin Meese III Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation. She is also a former senior counsel to the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education. Ms. Kim Russell is the former head women's lacrosse coach at Oberlin College and now serves as an ambassador for the Independent Women's Forum. And finally, Mrs. Fatima Goss-Graves is the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center. Welcome and thank you again for all being here. Pursuant to the committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give in this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Thank you. You all take a seat. So again, I now recognize myself, I now recognize the witnesses for an opening statement. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statement and we will have it appear in full in the hearing record. Please limit your oral statements to 5 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is on. And as the members can hear you, you will begin to speak. The light in front of you will turn green. After four minutes, the light will turn yellow. Then the red light will come on. Your 5 minutes is expired and we would ask you to please wrap up. I now recognize Ms. Gaines for her opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Riley Gaines, and I'm an ambassador for Independent Women's Voice, and I'm here today to urge you to protect women's sports and uphold the original intent of Title IX. My story is by now well known. I was a student at University of Kentucky, where I was also a member of the women's swim team, finishing my collegiate career as a 12-time NCAA All-American, a 5-time SEC champion, still the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time. In March of 2022, female swimmers from around the country and I were forced to compete at NCAAs against Leah, formerly Will Thomas. We watched as this male swam to a women's national title, beating out the most impressive and accomplished female swimmers in the nation, including Olympians and American record holders. Despite tying down to the 100th with Thomas in the 200 freestyle, I was denied the trophy because the NCAA claimed it was necessary for Thomas to hold the trophy when photos were being taken. It was clear to me, my teammates, and my competitors that they had reduced everything we had worked our entire lives for down to a photo op to validate the feelings and the identity of a male. But that's not all. In addition to losing out on opportunities to Thomas, we also had to share a locker room and change in front of this 6'4", fully intact, naked male. And as I've testified previously, we were not forewarned of this arrangement, we were not asked for our consent, and we did not give our consent to this exposure and to be exploited. Unfortunately, Thomas was not a one-off. across the country and in various sports, males are entering women's athletic competitions, being given spots on women's teams, and being granted entry to our locker rooms. There are numerous documented instances of males competing not just in women's swimming, but also in women's track, cross country, basketball, volleyball, field hockey, and other sports at all levels of competition. This issue is incredibly underreported for various reasons. But common sense Americans know intuitively this is not fair to women. And science, of course, supports that instinct. In fact, studies consistently show males have about a 10 to 12% athletic advantage over females. This gap is evident in almost every sport and at every level of competition. Yes, hormone therapy can narrow this gap, but it...
For some reason, they keep bringing this woman back here. Like, I don't understand how they not see that this ain't right. They should have their own class of sports. Do what they... I just don't understand this shit. But this is her second time back here. We did her about 2 months ago. And she broke it down clearly. The disadvantages, you know what I'm saying, that they're facing. She worked all her life and she settled for second place. I believe it was in the Olympics. But this shit is fucked up. But I think it's going to get quite juicy. Because, I mean, black girl already started off crazy.
Cannot close it. And studies consistently demonstrate that surgery and testosterone suppression do not reduce male athletic performance to normal female levels. Take Thomas, for example. He was mediocre against the men at best, ranking 400ths and 500ths nationally, then dominating all of the women in the entire country by body lengths, might I add, in a matter of a year. Not only do women have to worry about losing opportunities and being exploited in locker rooms, allowing men into women's sports also puts girls at greater risk of injury. In September of last year, North Carolina high school volleyball player Peyton McNabb suffered serious injury after a trans-identified male player spiked a ball at her head, rendering her unconscious. Peyton experienced extensive trauma to her head and neck and long-term concussion symptoms. Still to this day, a year and 3-ish months later, she is still partially paralyzed on her right side. Her vision is impaired, her memory is impaired, and she isn't playing college sports like she had dreamed of for herself. Just a few weeks ago in Massachusetts, a male player on the Swampscott High School field hockey women's team injured an opposing player with a shot to the face, sending the female athlete to the hospital with significant facial and dental injuries. Injuries, of course, can and do happen when females are playing against other females, but allowing men to play women's sports increases the likelihood and severity of such injuries. That's one of the reasons why, for 50 years, federal Title IX regulations have allowed schools to offer separate teams for women and men when the sports are contact sports or involve competitive skill. In April of 2023, the Department of Education proposed a rule that, if adopted, would reverse this presumption. Under the proposed rule, women's sports aren't just for women. They're for anyone who simply says they are a woman, unless a particular school can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the Department of Education that keeping a particular team female meets important educational objectives. The new rule mandates that every school in the country must demonstrate the unfairness of male participation on each specific women's team that they offer and develop rules that minimize harm to trans-identified athletes. But what about the harm to us? Who is working to minimize the harm done to female athletes? Let me be perfectly clear. A school that knowingly allows a male athlete to take a spot on a women's team or allows a male athlete to take the field in a women's game is denying a female student athletic opportunity, and that is sex-based discrimination, and it violates Title IX, regardless of what the new regulations might say. It is my sincere hope that members of this committee will take action to stop the Biden administration's illegal and administrative rewrite of Title IX. Of course, there is a place for everyone, regardless of gender identity, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of race or what sports you play. There's a place for everyone to play sports in this country. But unsafe, unfair, and discriminatory practices towards women must stop. Inclusion cannot be prioritized over safety and fairness. And Ranking Member Lee, if my testimony makes me transphobic, then I believe your opening monologue makes you a misogynist. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. I now recognize Ms. Perry for her opening statements.
Good afternoon, Chairman McLean, Ranking Member Lee, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. My name is Sarah Parshall Perry. I am a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. As a former varsity athlete, the mother of a girls varsity athlete, and former senior counsel for civil rights at the Department of Education, I have, as the saying goes,
Madam Chair, excuse me, I move to have the gentlewoman's words taken down.
The committee will suspend.
Madam Chair, she's engaging in personalities.
Can I just ask how it's fair to be called transphobic?
There's a
thing.
I would say men disguising themselves as women are engaging in personalities.
Order. Hang on. Order. Let's get a ruling. The chair.
Okay, I move to withdraw the point of order.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. I now recognize Ms. Perry for her opening statement. We can start over. Thank you.
Chairwoman McClain, Ranking Member Lee, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. My name is Sarah Parshall-Perry. I am a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. As a former varsity athlete, the mother of a girls varsity athlete, and former senior counsel for civil rights at Department of Education, I have, as the saying goes, skin in this game. What we're discussing today is an athletic scandal, a fraud of unprecedented proportions perpetrated by the federal government on American students. It turns obvious distinctions between the sexes into nothing more than the myths of a bygone era, while expecting female athletes to simply look the other way. In education, one law should stand as a bulwark against sex discrimination, as it has for the 50 years since its inception. And yet, the department's rulemaking on Title IX purports to provide for the participation of men in women's sports, rendering the sex discrimination of old new again. Title IX made possible opportunities for women historically excluded from higher education, athletics, graduate school, scholarships, and more. Because of the law, the rate of girls' participation in high school athletics is now 1,000% higher. Girls now constitute over 56% of American college students and 42% of high school athletes, and 94% of female executives played scholastic sports. Title IX was the crowning achievement of the feminist movement. Its origins incontrovertibly in women's liberation, spurred by statements made by the judge famously, who proclaimed in 1971, "Athletic competition builds character in our boys. We don't need that kind of character in our girls." And yet, by threatening to gut Title IX's guarantee of equality, the department is on the cusp of perpetuating just this type of regressive thinking. There are two rules at issue, the latter of which governs criteria for athletics. Between athletic interests of women and transgender identified men, the department has called the rule a compromise, but a compromise it most definitely is not. Instead, it is a self-refuting tangle of considerations, a bureaucratic nightmare for any educational institution to which it applies. It doesn't clarify Title IX's sex-based criteria in sports. It complicates it. It departs from decades of Title IX's application to athletics, obscures the plain text of the long-standing athletics regulation with vague terms, an unworkable standard, and the guaranteed conflict with the contrary laws of 23 states. It balances the equities against the women and girls who are at the heart of Title IX's passage, and impressively does all this while violating constitutional, civil rights, and administrative law. The coup de grace, there is a reason to argue that the department even lacks the authority to promulgate an athletics regulation in the first place. Then there is the rule's refusal to acknowledge obvious sex-based competitive advantages to sport. Males have greater lung capacity, larger hearts, more bone density, more muscle mass. They jump higher, throw further, run faster, accelerate quicker, and punch harder than females. And this gap emerges as early as the age of 12, when males experience a 20-fold boost in testosterone. Title IX and its implementing regulations contain a set of limited sex-affirmative exceptions, allowing schools to take sex into account, and a sex binary. Male versus female is the foundation upon which the entire statute rests. Its use of the words both and either reinforces this long-standing understanding. Even the Supreme Court's determination in Bostock versus Clayton County that sex discrimination in employment also includes discrimination based on sexual orientation and transgender status does nothing to change that, nor did the Supreme Court intend to. When biological boys are glibly classified as girls, the feminist gains of the past 50 years are eviscerated. Womanhood cannot be achieved by puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones, and it deserves the continued protection of Title IX. I urge this chamber not to rewind the clock on women's progress, but rather hold fast to the principles of equality. The future of women's sports depends on it. If a self-declaration of womanhood and hormones are sufficient to open women's sports to men, what, after all, was the point of the women's liberation movement? I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. The chair now recognizes Ms. Russell for her opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm Kim Russell, an ambassador for the Independent Women's Forum.
He's opening statements.
Why am I here?
Taking forever.
I'm 56 years
down
old.
to the action.
I'm an athlete, a coach, a mother, and a teacher, and a longtime advocate for women and girls. This has been my life and my passion. I played 2 sports at the D1 level that never would have been possible without Title IX. I've been a lacrosse coach for over 27 years. I'm in 3 halls of fame for coaching and contributing to the growth of lacrosse, and there's actually an award in my name. Oberlin College removed me from coaching and offered me an administrative position after I chose to publicly tell my story and refused to be silent or back down about my belief that men, no matter how they self-identify, should not be allowed to compete in women's sports. I joined Oberlin College in 2018 as a head women's lacrosse coach and a wellness instructor. I've always been pro-woman, then and now. Over the course of my coaching career, I've been a mentor to many women and girls, sharing advice both on and off the field. My athletes, including several who've identified as transgender, have always known they can come to me to laugh, to cry, or anything in between. I've been nicknamed the hippie love coach. Not only because I'm a yoga instructor, I'm usually barefoot, these shoes are not my typical wear. I read energy and coach intuitively, but because I've given countless individuals a safe space to thrive and feel a sense of belonging. In March of 2022, I'd been following the story of Leah Thomas and kept thinking someone would speak up. How could a biological male be allowed to compete with women regardless of a hormone-blocking regime? I was flabbergasted that coaches, parents, administrators, and athletes were okay with this. After Thomas won, I reposted an Instagram post on my personal story that said, "Congratulations to Emma Weyant, the real woman who won the NCAA 500-yard freestyle." I added my own short commentary. What do you believe? I can't be quiet on this. I've spent my entire life playing sports, coaching, and starting sports programs for girls and women. Turns out, it was more controversial than I could have ever anticipated. Based on this simple post, I was called transgressive, transphobic, and unsafe. I was told to write letters of apology to my team and the athletic department because of the unrest and disruption I had caused. I couldn't apologize for something that I'm not sorry for. I would not and will not apologize for saying a biological male does not belong in women's sports and private spaces. As an athlete and coach for nearly my entire life, I am personally familiar with the distinct differences between male and female athletes. I gave birth to 4 kids. I ran the sidelines nursing a child while I coached in the state championships, and I've had another child on my back at the same time. After I refused to apologize, I was called in for a meeting of my team with a mediator present. A handful of the student athletes on my team attacked and vilified me as if I were the enemy and had just killed someone. A week later, there was another meeting with my team and 3 college administrators. For 1 hour and 42 minutes, the same athletes who I had treated like my own kids bashed me over and over again in front of the administrators simply for having a pro-woman perspective that was different from theirs. I had to stay quiet and repeat back everything they said and confirm that I had heard their concerns. At the end of the meeting, I was given the chance to respond, at which point I knew whatever I said would land on deaf ears. I was called into the AD's office after the season ended and handed a letter. At the bottom it said, "This letter is intended to help you understand and appreciate the impact of your actions and the need for you to immediately modify your behavior." I asked Oberlin to provide me with a written letter on what I had done wrong and how I could improve my behavior, but was never provided any clarity. When I arrived at Oberlin in 2018, I was so excited to be part of a community that celebrates free spirit, open-minded dialogue, freedom of speech, and freedom of expression. I'm the hippie love coach. I thought I was home. But Oberlin, like many higher-level institutions today, only seems to support the First Amendment if your values align with theirs. Most people have chosen to stay silent in this topic because of the consequences seem too great. Loss of a job, reputation, friends or family, you name it. I am here in part to speak for them. I will never apologize for believing that women and girls should have the right to single-sex competition, a right for which women before me fought tirelessly. I'm hoping that my speaking up will give others the courage to do the same. I am here hoping to ensure that you understand the ramifications of the Biden administration's proposed regulations and that you will each do your job to ensure that the original meaning of Title IX is upheld. It was passed when I was 5. I have reaped the benefits and my life's journey continues to be massively impacted. The Biden administration is trying to effectively change the meaning and language of Title IX. If allowed, this will endanger women in sports and private spaces, take away opportunities from women in sports and academia. Never in a million years did I think I would be sitting here at 56 fighting to get back the rights that were given to women and girls 51 years ago. Since March of 2022, many more biological males have invaded women's and girls' sports. There have been life-changing injuries, opportunities lost, and privacy has been invaded. We are harming women and girls. You have the opportunity to be heroes. This is about upholding truth, protecting the dreams of female athletes, and the original meaning of Title IX.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. The chair next recognizes Ms. Goss Graves. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairwoman McClain, Ranking Member Lee, and members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Fatima Goss-Graves, and I'm President and CEO of the National Women's Law Center. The National Women's Law Center was founded the same year that Title IX was passed and has worked to remove barriers for women and girls throughout the course of their lives throughout our founding. And since I have had the great honor to engage in this critical work, including as an advocate for women and girls in school and in sports. In fact, my first Title IX matter was more than 15 years ago, where we worked to successfully secure equal facilities for girls in a school district in Maryland. And over the last 50 years, Title IX has dramatically advanced women and girls' participation in school sports. High school girls have 3 million more opportunities to play today than they did before Title IX. And 44% of NCAA athletes today are now women, compared to only 15% before Title IX. But significant barriers to gender equity in sport persist. Women and girls have over 1 million fewer opportunities to play in high school than boys. Some schools still treat girls and women's teams as afterthoughts. We hear complaints of uniforms and equipment that are essentially second class. They aren't afforded the same level of publicity to showcase their many talents. And women in professional sports consistently complain about gender bias in pay. And we have all learned of case after case of sexual abuse against student athletes, which schools overlooked. The deplorable conduct by coaches and athletic trainers and school doctors. These barriers to gender equity in sports are well documented and they are pervasive. Yet none of that is the subject of the hearing today. Instead, today is really about attacking and dehumanizing transgender people, and especially trans women and girls. And even though trans youth are not responsible for any of the problems in sport that I have named, and still, we have seen at least 24 states who have been racing to move to ban trans students from women and girls sports teams. Falsely, they are protecting women's sports. That's just not true. We know from data collected from between 2008 and 2019 that including trans student athletes correlates with increased participation by all girls. In contrast, girls' overall participation.
Holy moly. Woo. That was a lot to take in. Is she serious? Man, you had professional teams can't beat high school team boys. So how was a transgender gonna be equal to a woman? Ooh. This is going to be a long one.
Participation in high school sports declined in states that enacted trans exclusionary policies. So let me put it really plainly. Excluding women and girls who are trans hurts all women and girls. The irony is this debate about including trans women and girls in sports should sound familiar to anyone who has tracked the evolution of Title IX over the last 5 decades. Because
where are my ladies at today in the chat? Holy moly.
At its root are sexist stereotypes that equate femininity with being slower and weaker and likely unathletic. Athletes come in all shapes and sizes, and rigid enforcement of who is a woman is dangerous and only encourages further discrimination. It invites the sort of gender policing that could subject any woman to accusations of being too masculine or too good or not a real enough woman to participate. The reality is that, like their peers, trans girls and women, they sometimes lose at sports and sometimes they win. And success in school sports depends on a whole range of factors, including how hard you work and coaching and access to really good resources and facilities. And trans students participate in sports for the same reason as their kids, because it is fun, because it creates belonging and community, because it teaches so much about persistence and leadership and discipline, unless they learn to lose gracefully, hopefully. And often
Leah,
they learn to win.
You hear her right.
Hopefully.
This is
they
gonna
learn
be a good
to
one.
do the sort of work that means you have higher grades and stay
little
connected to school.
through parts that I
every
went
kid
through, man.
to have that chance, to have the chance to play. So I feel compelled to just end my testimony with a few ideas for the committee to pursue if it really wants to work on this issue. We could make it safer for student athletes who report harassment and sexual misconduct. We could address resource disparities in sports. We could protect access to healthcare, including gender-affirming and reproductive healthcare, pay, promotions, dealing with the caregiving crisis in this country. All of that could be your agenda. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Ms. Goss-Graves. I would just like to remind everybody the title of the hearing, since it is my hearing. And the title of the hearing is the importance of protecting female athletes in Title IX. I am for protecting women. We fought very, very long and very hard to protect women. So I just want to be clear. There's not a hidden agenda. It is actually to protect women in women's sports.
They're going to try to push
since it's my hearing, I just wanted to clarify that is my agenda. With that, without objection, Representative Jordan of Ohio, Representative Sessions of Texas, Representatives Green of Georgia, Representative Boebert of Colorado, Representative Education releases second Title IX rule and fails again. A report from the Independent Women's Forum and the Independent Women's Law Center titled Competition, Title IX, Male-Bodied Athletes and the Threat to Women's Sports. An article from the Daily Signal titled Exclusive School Assigned Girls to Sleep with Boys Who Identify as Trans Without Parental Notification, and a statement for the record submitted by the NCAA on December 4th, 2023. Without objection, so ordered. The chair now recognizes Chairman Comer.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, for holding this hearing, protecting female sports in Title IX. As a Kentuckian, when I think about great Kentucky female athletes, our witness, Riley Gaines, is the first name that pops out. And Riley, on behalf of every great Kentucky Wildcat fan in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, we thank you for how well you represented Kentucky on the national level and for your advocacy today in being a leading voice in protecting women's sports. Ms. Gaines, has Title IX had a positive impact on your access to athletic and academic opportunities?
Of course it has. I would not have been able to achieve what I achieved without Title IX, without the women's sporting category. Of course, it's developed me into the leader that I am today. It's given me the confidence to stand before this committee and the security to stand firm in my belief that men should not be playing in women's sports.
I know we had a witness that suggested that because you worked so hard all your life to be the best, I mean, you were the best in female swimming. There's no question about that. And to have to lose or share a title with a biological male, you know, we had a witness on the panel suggest you should have just lost gracefully. I mean, I think that is a slap in the face to any athlete who works so hard. I mean, I was a below mediocre basketball player on my high school basketball team. I can't imagine the work that you put in, that any great athlete, male or female, puts in. And I don't think you should lose gracefully. I think you should do exactly what you've been doing. You're a class act, and you've been a leader. You've told your story. Many of us on this side of the aisle have heard your story many times, and we respect what you're doing, and we stand with you. I just want you to know that.
Well, I appreciate that a whole lot. And just for the record, I have certainly lost gracefully many times in my career. Even speaking to the incident of Thomas and I at the national championships, we tied for fifth. Granted, fifth in the entire nation, so it's still an incredible achievement. But there were 4 women who beat me, and I'm incredibly proud of those women who beat me. So I certainly can and have lost gracefully many times in my career.
I lose gracefully a lot on the golf course. Not really, but I lose a lot on the golf course. Coach Russell, if the Biden administration successfully redefines Title IX to include gender identity, are you concerned that young women will miss out on athletic and academic opportunities that would be afforded to them?
Absolutely. So not only would biological males be able to take the positions on teams away from females, that includes then scholarship money at different levels. It includes awards at different levels. It includes now NIL money, so sponsorship money. It's not just a one-off. There are many different levels that will hit, yes.
Well, Madam Chair, before I yield back, I just want to thank our witnesses who are here today advocating for female sports and Title IX. This is a great hearing, and we look forward to working with you as a majority to protect women's sports and Title IX moving forward. With that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Ms. Lee from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I must say I'm surprised to hear that my Republican colleagues care so much about protecting the, quote, safety, privacy, and opportunities of women, since their voting record and priorities this Congress shows the opposite. A report released last year in conjunction with the 50th anniversary of Title IX found that men's athletic programs received more than twice as many resources as women's programs in 2020, and that expenditures for recruiting and compensating head coaches and assistant coaches favored male athletes nearly 3-1. Yet the 2024 appropriations bill did nothing to expand access for women in sports. It did, however, contain a rider to prevent the proposed Department of Education rule relating to transgender athletes' ability to participate in sports. Ms. Goss-Graves, to your knowledge, do any of the bans preventing transgender students from participating in sports increase funding for women's sports?
No, they do not.
Do any of these bans improve playing fields or increase the number of women's teams?
Absolutely not.
Do any of these bans provide resources to expand recreational sports opportunities for low-income female athletes?
No.
While this committee purports to care about the safety of women, in 2021, when the House voted to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, 80% of the Republican caucus voted against that law. Not a single Republican member of this committee, nor our current speaker, voted for it. That bill included a provision to close the boyfriend loophole. Currently, people convicted of domestic violence against a spouse cannot.
Why does the Republican shit even matter for this kind of topic? Is all they do is throw shots? And I'm talking about the Democrat, because you got to be a Democrat to be throwing a shot at the Republican. Are they understanding what is being done at the position they in? I mean, I'm just asking. This is crazy.
Purchase a firearm, but nothing prevents a boyfriend from acquiring one. Ms. Goss-Graves, unlike gun violence, where the data is clear, is there any evidence that allowing transgender athletes to participate in sports presents a safety concern for women?
Absolutely not.
Because my Republican colleagues also claim to be concerned about women's privacy and opportunities, let's also discuss the Women's Health Protection Act, which passed in the House last year and would protect and expand access to abortion care. Not a single Republican voted for this law. The right to abortion is rooted directly in the right to privacy. And research has repeatedly shown that the ability to access abortion corresponds with greater economic opportunities for women. Ms. Goss-Graves, is there any reason to believe that allowing transgender young people to participate in sports threatens women's privacy or employment or economic opportunities?
None of those things are threatened by the participation of transgender individuals in sports.
Thank you. In fact, isn't there a risk that banning transgender athletes could lead to privacy violations, either through requiring documentation or invasive examinations?
That there is a deep worry there, and some states have passed that sort of sex verification law, which would subject all women and girls to those sorts of examinations.
Ms. Goss-Graves, what should we actually focus on if we want to protect opportunities for women in sports?
There is an opportunity right now to promote further resources to address sexual abuse that is happening in sports, to provide the sort of resources that mean more kids have an opportunity to play, and to advocate for that the Biden administration finalize this rule that has been waiting for so long. That's where we are.
We've seen these same misguided arguments before, rooted in false stereotypes, when athletes of color tried to integrate, taking away opportunities from white athletes. Black women in sports, whether they are shifting roles and expectations as a reprimand for their success. They are accused of doping or cheating in order to win. People make cruel remarks about their perceived femininity and create racist depictions of their physicality, all in attempts to discourage and exclude them from competing, and ultimately to keep them from winning. They were wrong then, and they're wrong now. I'm offended to see hatred and bigotry wrapped up in faux concerns about women and girls. We're talking about children wanting to play sports, wanting to feel included and accepted. I'd like to quote the Republican governor from Utah, Governor Cox's veto message, who said, quote, "Rarely has so much fear and anger been directed at so few. I don't understand what they are going through or why they feel the way they do, but I want them to live." I yield back.
I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Ms. Gaines, why is it patently unfair to allow biological males to compete in women's sports?
I mean, look at what's happened. I mean, even if you just look at the examples recently, we don't see females entering into men's sports and dominating. This is only happening one way, and with that way being males entering into women's sports and dominating. Of course, I could get into the science of it. I mentioned the athletic gap in my testimony, which is consistent among sports, specifically sports where there's a time, an objective time, like swimming or track and field. It tends to be 10 to 12% across the board. You look at things like wingspan or height or lung capacity or the size of the heart, which does not change with hormone suppression. And again, of course, going through puberty, those effects are irreversible.
So you're actually telling us to follow the science?
That is true.
Second question, I know that you have been active in working with Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority in Wyoming. Can you explain what is going on there and why it is so important that sororities remain female only?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let me, real quickly, Ms. Russell, can you speak to your experiences with cancel culture and the treatment you received at Oberlin College because you stood up for women?
My own children just say, Mama, you've been canceled twice. Yes, I would say I went into Oberlin as a fairly liberal person. I still love everyone and support everyone, no matter who you want to be, who you want to decide you want to present as. There are extreme differences in the biology of men and women. I've experienced it as an athlete and a coach and a parent. As an athlete, I chose to play co-ed field hockey as an adult. My worst injury I've ever had came from that. A man fell on top of me when I fell this way. I'm 5'4", maybe 120 pounds, soaking wet. I haven't ever been bigger except when I was pregnant. When he fell on me, 2 of my ribs popped off of my sternum. Those are the kind of injuries, and what happened to Peyton McNabb has recently happened to another high school athlete in California whose dad is too afraid to say anything. And this cancel culture, what's happened is kids are too afraid to say anything. Parents are too afraid to say anything. Coaches are in massive fear of losing their jobs. Professors are in massive fear of losing
all
their
for
jobs.
standing up for women.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. And with that, my time is done. The chair now recognizes Mr. Raskin.
Thank you kindly, Madam Chair. Quoted the Republican governor of Utah, who said something to the effect of, never before had he seen so many be so cruel to so few who just wanted to participate. And Ms. Gosgraves, let me start with you. It sounds to me like what we're mostly talking about here is the women who are at the very highest levels of their sport in the final competitions. We're talking about the very best. But do you get complaints about this, or have you heard complaints about this just with people participating in either co-ed sports generally, or transgender athletes who are part of an intramural softball league, or people playing not for very high stakes, but playing for the reason most of us play, which is to get exercise and have fun?
You know, about 24 states have been racing to try to ban transgender participation in sports at all levels. And many of those states have struggled to identify any transgender individuals who are actually playing sports. What
Alrighty, am I back? Might have to shut this down